Welcome to the show, Kishore. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you, Robbie. This is my second time on the air, and I'm the second guest. So I don't know if I bring you luck.
See, we got the right background, the right state of mind, Kishore. It's always good to have you on the show, and would love to hear about what you're bringing us today, and help set the stage for some learners and some folks in the audience that may be tuning in for the first time, maybe unfamiliar with what we're going to be talking about here.
Sure. So, and it's again great to be here and to be second, because Tarun mentioned a lot of good stuff earlier, that Bedrock is a generative AI platform, and there are multiple model choices available on the platform. But how do you choose? There has to be some systematic way to choose a model, right? Because there's no silver bullet. One model can be good at doing something, and the other model may be good at doing something else. So the question would be, how do you evaluate? How do you compare? And how would you select a model, right? And there are three dimensions generally customers look at. They look at either accuracy, and accuracy is very task specific. So is it good at like summarizing a document, or is it good at responding to my customer queries? Second would be latency, how fast. It always depends on different use cases, how fast you want the results. And third, of course, very important thing is cost. How much is it going to cost me to run a model inference? So a good model evaluation framework would let you do all these three things. They would let you compare the accuracy of the models, measure the accuracy, look at the latency, and also let you compare the cost. And model evaluation is something we launched in preview at reInvent last year. And 2 days back, we GA'd the product. So now it's good for using in your production environment.
I got to say, for somebody who's spent a lot of time sitting there and reading through thousands of lines of Python code to figure out how exactly we're going to be getting that exact value validation. Like, all right, we know what our T-flops per dollar is. Okay, we have a good idea what our accuracy is. But to be able to do that in parallel without having to write a new test script, admittedly, I spent a lot of time and effort with a couple teams internally trying to find a way to do this faster. And I'm so glad we're able to do this, because not only does that remove me from being the fragile artifact in the stream, but it also encourages folks to do it directly from the source, from the service team, to go and do the exact thing that you mentioned. Find the best model for your use case as quickly as possible so you can get out there and build. Robbie, what do you think about that?
I love that. I think what's resonated with me most, Kishore was mentioning around reInvent when it was first announced. I had a chance to sit in to that reInvent presentation. One thing that struck me was, again, we talked about in the earlier launch, the custom model import. It's about customer choice. I would argue that for model evaluation, it's also about customer choice, because it's not just about what metric is meaningful to you, either, again, quantitatively by way of accuracy, qualitative by way of brand voice, but also thinking more broadly what this means. I think is just super powerful around the reducing that undifferentiated heavy lifting. So as we, maybe from your perspective, Kishore, from customer feedback, what have you heard throughout preview that really informed things like the difference between human versus automatic model evaluation?
Yeah, sure. So automatic evaluation will give you the standard metrics, which will give you like a directional choice. That what is the accuracy based on the data set you have used? And this is a computed accuracy, or what is the robustness, and specifically toxicity is very critical. You want to make sure that the responses generated are not toxic. But automatic evaluation cannot look at the style and the branding, which is very, very critical. Also, when we look at something like, just as human, right? All three of us are there, right? And if you look at a picture, we all think, we all think it differently, right? We look at the picture and we have different perception of things, right? So it is very important to have a human evaluation component where different people look at it and give their opinion of how they feel about the results coming from different models. Sometimes you can get this feedback even from your customers. They may like the feedback, they may not like the way the app is generating. So gathering that information from humans is also critical. So I always recommend customers that do it step by step, right? The evaluation can be done. First, do automatic evaluation, get directionally which model works better for you out of multiple choices you have, and then take it to human evaluation and bring your like business experts or your application experts to evaluate using the human evaluation.
That's great. That's great. No, definitely appreciate the the detailed view here. Maybe if we zoom out more broadly, Adrian, what are some of have you heard anything from customer feedback in this area?
We don't have enough time in the segment to go into exactly how much and what I've heard, but yeah, there's a lot. And also the point of clarification, you pointed me out as human. I think by now I'm legally considered a cyborg, considering I've got more metal in my body than a mosh pit. But I digress. I'm hearing constantly the amount of uncertainty and almost full-on analysis paralysis with the business stakeholder saying, hey, well, we just want this out in market quickly and trading. Latency over every other metric is something that's valuable to their voice and to what they're trying to do, versus tech effectively saying, no, we're going to prioritize accuracy. It's going to take, instead of taking microseconds, it's going to take 9 seconds or whatever the actual value is. And in multiple instances, every single one of these partners and their customers that I'm speaking to has a true horror story of what can happen if you don't make the right decision, or even worse, you go in blindly. One comes to mind immediately of a partner and an enterprise customer building a big fancy POC for a joint prospect, and they go in and they click the button for the demo. They sit there and they're waiting. They were expecting the response to be relatively quick. On paper, it was supposed to be 9 seconds. Well, they kind of got the math wrong. It was 9,000 milliseconds. So they were sitting there effectively for 9 minutes and just waiting for the response to come out. By that time, the prospect had kind of lost interest. The partner got burned. The end customer was just kind of left thinking like, hey, maybe we should have listened to you and had at least an opportunity to marry the quantitative and the qualitative so we can actually go forth. But as all good tech stories have a so what and the lesson learned there, being able to change even a die-hard, we want to do it this way because it's the way we've always done it type of customer, being able to convert them and say, hey, look, this is why these sorts of things matter, was huge. And I imagine that this type of conversation is playing out in businesses, enterprises, partners all over the world, and having to find that delicate balance of how you can best go about doing these things without overburdening your teams and spending multiple weeks doing these validations. One partner that I'm working with currently, I think you may know who I'm talking about, Robbie. We're in week 17 of the validation between accuracy and latency. And ultimately, it's negligible. It's not really a whole heck of a lot, but to the business, it's material. And in a lot of instances, and I may have touched on it before, and it's always something I harp on, the ROI and the expected impact to the business as a whole should be the focus at the forefront. And this tool I see is part and parcel to making that a reality.
Yep.
Kishore, I'm very, very interested to hear if what we're talking about, is that what your team is hearing and why you acted in this way to bring this to market?
Yeah, sure. We are hearing, a lot of feedback while like last few months, right? Between preview and GA. Most important thing is that what if the accuracy is not where we want it, right? What do you do? So the path customers are choosing is either to customize a model, or now you can import a model into Bedrock. But how do you know the customization or the changes they are making to get to that accuracy which they need? How do you get there, right? You still need evaluation. So what you do is that you compare it with the base model and see how you are improving at every step of the customization. Mm-hmm. So plus, again, we are launching new models, I think, almost every month. And I believe that the frequency may get even shorter. So every new model comes up and says that, hey, we are good at this. You're looking at leaderboards. But how do you believe that? How do you make sure that it is going to work for my application, my specific use case? In fact, going one step deeper for my prompt. And that's why it is critical that you evaluate every model which you are thinking of choosing with your own prompt and data.
Versus that big generic.
So many
folks love to go rush to. Would love to get into the demo if you're ready to go for it. And I think, Robbie, you still had a question that was outstanding, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. While you pull up the demo, Kishore, around, I mean, I'd love to see something around maybe like text generation performance, a little bit of a race, and then helping us to understand the metrics, what we should be looking at. One thing that strikes me, so if you're new to Amazon Bedrock, and this is your first time experiencing generative AI on AWS, what have we learned so far? We've learned that the barrier to entry to building generative AI applications is really low. Increased customer choice, foundation models natively available, custom models available to import. What we're also learning today is for those who want to go really deep and fine tune the model, you can define what good looks like, which is really exciting. And then it's a feedback loop. It's a life cycle. That's what was talked about at reInvent when this feature was first announced. I remember that session. It was the life cycle that's being sort of abstracted away from you so that you can focus on building your application through this native feature. So from your perspective, just to clarify, Kishore, to the audience, model evaluation, this isn't a one-time task. This is an ongoing effort. Adrian mentioned 17. It's an ongoing process to make those changes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because there are so many variables, right? Your application is changing. I mean, anybody of us who has been developer, we know, right? Like there's never a case where you compile an app and you deploy it and you never touch it. That never happens, right? So your application is changing every time. Your user behavior is changing every time. Now you have new models. You have so many factors which play into this whole generative AI application development that there's no way you evaluate one time and you call it a day. You have to keep on doing this absolutely every time there's a change in any of these variables.
Yep. Demo time?
Demo time.
Demo time.
Good.
Okay, so let's start very quickly, right? Like if you come in without having any knowledge of model evaluation, you simply want to compare two models and see how they will respond and look at their accuracy very subjectively, latency, and the cost. You go into the chat mode, you select the model, and I'm going to select Amazon Titan Express, select a compare mode, select another model, let's say Llama 2, and say, how are you doing? Run the query. There you go. You see and again, this is a subjective evaluation. Both the models were able to give you a response. Now, one may like, I may like a response on the my left, and anybody who is not human may like the response on the right. Adrian, I don't know which one you would like here.
I'm literally split in the middle. But it depends on what the use case is, right? If say, hey, if you want speed to the prompt or to the response to the prompt over a longer, more verbose answer, you might lean on Titan. If you want the longer, more verbose, seemingly human response, and yeah, you may lean more to the right. But as always, our favorite term, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish.
Exactly, and that's why it's very subjective. And we'll talk about human evaluation and subjective evaluation. Okay. But quickly, you can look at the latency numbers. These are the latency numbers from getting the input to generating the first response. So you can compare the latency. Of course, you can see the latency is low versus high because there's more text being generated. So we have to, again, be subjective. We can't just compare these two numbers and say one is fast and one is slow because the other model is generating more tokens. Also, you can look at the cost because you have input tokens and the output tokens. So this is a very, very quick way to look at, like, again, subjectively look at accuracy, latency, and cost. Now, if you get serious and now you have multiple models and you want to do more thorough evaluation, you would go into the model evaluation and you have multiple options. You have automatic evaluation. You have bring your own work team. This is where you can create your work team. And in a bit, I'll show you how to do that and assign them the evaluation task where they can go and evaluate the models. Or you can work with our team at Amazon, where we can provide you a team. You can define the criteria for evaluating a model, and we will do the evaluation for you and provide you the results. So let's quickly look at create automatic evaluation job. Let's give it a name quickly here. So I am going to give it a name and then choose a model which I would like to evaluate. So I would like to evaluate a Titan Express model. I can also provide the configuration, as you can see here. So I can change the temperature or top P, response length, provide a stop sequence. Also, you can provide guardrails if you want. Then let's go to text generation, right? As Robbie mentioned, he wants to try text generation. So we will try text generation here. And let's see what we want to look at. We will look at all three. We will look at toxicity first. And the amazing part about model evaluation on Bedrock is that we provide you both the options. If you don't have the data set, we will let you select from the open source data set so that you don't have to sit there and create this large data set for evaluation. You can always start with the open source data set. So let's select a real toxicity data set. And for accuracy, we will use Trex dataset. And for robustness, we will use Wiki2. Then you have to provide a S3 bucket where you want to store your dataset. I'm going to store it here in this location. Again, why this is important is that any evaluation results we generate, it is not stored in Bedrock. It is always stored in your S3 bucket, which is very, very critical. So no data generated. So you can have PII, PCI information in your prompts. And when we generate those results, we will always store it in your S3 bucket. There's no data stored with us. That's very critical for model evaluation. Then you can create a new role or select an existing role, specify the bucket for which you want this role to have access and hit create. For the interest of time, I've already created a job and run it because it takes, it can take from anywhere from few minutes to few hours based on how many prompts you want to evaluate. And let's look at the on-demand automated results. So it's for generation task type and it is computing the metrics for robustness, accuracy, and toxicity. And here you can see how many prompts were processed and what are the values. And then you can also see the configuration you had selected here, like it was Titan Express. This is where you've stored the result, what was the task type, and what was the inference configuration.
Perfect. I know we're running a little bit short on time here. So for those who are intrigued by learning a little bit more and building right alongside you, where do you recommend getting started?
So I would recommend that start with simple chat, and play with this and see how things go with the models, as an individual developer. And then if you are an enterprise and you have large teams, then I would recommend go for automatic evaluation. And again, if you have subject matter experts, recommend automated evaluation. So start with the playground here on the console. Of course, we support both console and APIs, but console is the right starting point.
Well said. Thank you for the demo. Thank you for joining us. And now, Adrian, when we're at the dinner table, having normal conversations around which foundation model best meets our needs, we have the data easily accessible. And if we want even more data, it can be amplified by model evaluation by Amazon Bedrock. Thank you, Kishore. Thanks so much for joining us. Hope to see you back again soon.
Thanks, Kishore.